Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the New York Film Academy. My name is Crickett Rumley, and I am the director of the Film Festival Department here in Los Angeles, but also serving our New York and South Beach campuses. I am so excited to welcome you today to a conversation with the filmmakers behind the short film, Please Hold, which is an amazing, hysterical, and yet terrifying sci-fi satire currently nominated for an Oscar. So with no further ado, let me bring on KD Dávila and Levin Menekse. KD and Levin, come on in. Hi, y'all.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Oh my goodness. It's a very exciting time to have a social satire about prison.
Yeah.
Very exciting. We're going to talk about the film some more, but why don't we talk a little bit about you first? How did y'all meet and how did you start working together?
Well, we are married to each other. So story of how we met. We met back in film school, actually. And I mean, funnily enough, we didn't actually start collaborating with each other until around the time like COVID hit, because we were stuck in an apartment together for 2 years. So we were often each other's, like, we were both writers. We were in the writing program in film school when we met, and this was actually my first time directing.
Yeah,
I guess
she's an overachiever. First time director, already an Oscar nominee.
What?
It's quite amazing.
I would say I have directed like classroom exercise type of films before, but other than this was my first time directing like an actual non-homework assignment short film.
Yeah. I married up, as they say.
But yeah, so we met each other a long time ago, and we have we've always been each other's first reader, first like critic, first sounding board as we talked through our stories together. And so I think it was us being in a small enclosed space together for so long, we've started working a lot more often together, just because we were like, well, we're each other's sounding board anyway, we might as well just work together. So we co-wrote the short together. I directed, and Levin was one of the producers. So yeah, it was a family affair. It was a family affair.
Some people have babies. We had a movie.
You had a movie that got nominated for an Oscar. That's just amazing.
It's still extremely surreal, and I'm not quite sure how that happened, but here we are.
Is this project a pandemic baby? Did you start writing this during pandemic?
No, we actually started writing it. We conceived of it before. And yeah, I mean, it all just kind of, I feel like yes and no, because we did like all of the post-production process was like all of that was like, we didn't finish the film until late 2020. So this was, so in some ways yes, in some ways no. We like, yes.
Well, it's interesting because I see why you ask, because it's like one person in one room for the most of it. It seems right for COVID, but no,
we actually wrote it before that.
Yeah.
And then so in some ways, yes.
So the idea, did you shoot before pandemic?
Yeah, we shot like right before the pandemic, and I guess that's actually true. I keep forgetting when we shot it because this entire year has just gone by so weirdly. But yes, but now we've been working a lot more together. So that was our first time collaborating on a project, was then, and then the pandemic struck like right away, and yeah, and then our post-production process definitely got like impacted by the course of events.
Yeah,
but
well, we were gonna have a long post anyway because of all the VFX and stuff. So it sort of worked out. I mean, so
yeah. Very impressive, y'all. Very impressive. I mean, while we're on the subject of post-production, we're gonna skip around a little bit. So let's talk about that, because first of all, this story, I was describing it earlier as incredibly cute and terrifying all at once.
Yeah.
you rarely say about the film, any film. And one of the things that I was really intrigued by is that your actor, did he ever have a scene with another human in the film?
Well, what's interesting was so this was a very low budget film. We really, we wanted to do as much practically as we could because, we knew we were going to have visual effects.
Right.
But I, as a person who was directing for the first time, did not want to not know what my movie was going to look like. If that makes sense. So the idea of having one actor just act against a blank screen and hope that it all was going to look good was terrifying to me. So we decided we were going to shoot all the things that were on the screens we shot in advance. So that was all, we shot a lot of that actually in order to raise money for the movie. So a lot of like the commercials and all that stuff we actually shot like well in advance before we even raised money. The fun fact, the lawyer is played by my dad.
Scaly is played by our
Scaly
friend.
is played by our friend.
This was a very
Greg,
scrappy
who's
production.
who's in our D&D group. Like the voice of Crickett Corp is my other friend. Like, this was a very, we shot a lot of that stuff in advance. We wanted to have it all ready so that we could, so Eric would have a scene partner, and we did have the voices, the people who, because they were our friends, we had the voices of a lot of the automated systems. We just brought them to set to hang out with us because they were our friends, and we asked them to just basically be there for him to like act against. Because I often feel that, so I guess this is my first time directing, but I have worked in television before, and so I've working on a TV set as a writer, you get to sit next to the director and observe them. And so, I had seen directing happen. And yeah, I thought it was important to have somebody reading as his scene partner and reading the lines that would not just kind of be flatly reading the lines.
Right.
I think it helps with the energy to have somebody who's there.
Yeah.
And to hear their voice.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because each of the commercials or, the avatars, whatever they are, they also have personality. And part of that is what is so frustrating. Like that cute little, the scale.
Automated public defender. Yeah. Justice.
We
his
call
name
him
is
Scaly.
We call him Scaly. His full name is Justice Scaly Esquire. So yeah.
Excellent name. Excellent name. So yeah, I can see that it would be really helpful for your actor to have those actual voices and personalities to work with.
Yeah, and we had that. Fernando Nahara was our animator, and he animated that in advance so that it would be ready, so he could actually look him in the eye as he was, seething in frustration. So yeah, I think that it really does help to be furious at that is different than being furious at a blank screen. So
just a blank screen.
He's so great. Yeah. So that was awesome.
So if you had your animator working in advance, did that mean that you had a long pre-production period, or?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's why I guess I'm saying it was like, it's hard to say when the production started and when it ended, just because it was like,
when we first started, writing this, it was very much sort of, it's your first time directing, it's going to be one person in one room, whatever. And then slowly it was like, oh shit, we're going to have drones, we're going to have things on the screen, we need to shoot them now.
Yeah.
So our pre-production was essentially like a production for our production.
Yes.
So it was very,
so I think the thing that we learned is, when we wrote it, we definitely were like, this is so producible. It's one person in a room. We can just do this. It'll be easy. And then, all the things we had to shoot in advance, we did a lot of it. It was a lot of like me and the editor making things and like working with our VFX supervisor, Dave McDonnell at Last Pixel, and his wife, Julie, made us a functioning website so that we could actually use it as while we were on set. So we could actually like use it as an interactive website. I mean, it was a lot of favors, and weirdly that was the easier thing to do than try to do it all afterward, because all those like putting screen replacements, they can be challenging, especially with all the reflections. It was weirdly easier and cheaper for us to just do all that work in advance.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, let's talk a little bit about where the idea came from and what it was like to write together. If you had been doing a lot of work as each other sort of sounding boards, what was it like to actually write together?
Yeah, the idea came from, I guess, like a lot of things, but I'm an immigrant from Turkey, a Muslim country. So, we were together during my immigration process, which was sort of, really captured that you're a small person in a faceless bureaucracy.
That is completely indifferent to you.
That is completely indifferent to you. I had like health insurance stuff in America, which was like maddening. So part of that Kafkaesque, but sadly real stuff came from that.
Yeah. And then also just, I read a bunch of articles kind of at the same time that were about people who had gotten wrongfully arrested just by mistake, people who gotten arrested by mistake. One that stuck in my mind particularly was a man who had the same name as the actual suspect and got arrested by mistake. And he tried explaining to his public defender, I'm not the right person. Like, you've got literally the wrong person. He was a Latino man with a fairly common name, and his public defender was kind of indifferent and just didn't follow up on that allegation. And he could not afford bail to get out of jail, so he lost his job while he was in jail, and then he got to trial, and the judge took one look at him and said, this is not the right person. He's the wrong age. Like, they don't fit the right description. And the case was dismissed, but he had already lost his job. He had lost his car. He had lost so much from the time he was sitting in prison, and they let you go with a sorry. And this happens so often in this country. And that was something that we wanted to capture, is that feeling of injustice that goes on every single day, that we all just take to be a natural flaw in the system, that people don't seem to care about until it happens to you. And also, meshing that with the universal experience of being stuck on the phone with an automated system that doesn't understand you and doesn't care to understand you, but is also being weirdly, fakely polite.
Right.
Like, we value your call. It's like, no, you don't. We've all been on that end of the call. And so, I think that that's the thing that everybody can empathize with, is that feeling of just frustration. But imagine that you're on the phone with like Spirit Airlines customer service, but your life is on the line. A nightmare.
And as to how sorry, I was.
No, go ahead. I just agree so much about, especially I was on a call with insurance last week, but it was one of those little animated things where you had to type in, and it was massive.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, they don't understand. They don't care. It's like still cheaper. Yeah. It's cheaper and more efficient on the company side to like than hiring a person. It's cheaper. So that's going to continue happening. So that's also,
It seems to like struck a vein with people though. I feel like I've had many people come after the screening and just like say very similar things.
Just like, I've been in that situation. And the scary thing is that this happens when it's not a big deal, but it also does happen sometimes. Like I remember we got stuck in this sort of situation. He had a heart condition and we were trying to get him to have surgery on his heart, and we were stuck. I'm fine now. He's okay now. It happened. It's all good. It's all good. But like, we were stuck on essentially in bureaucratic hell with like automated systems being like, sorry, like you're not going to have surgery. And we're like,
my family's coming from Turkey.
So it's like, we've all been in these situations, and it's like, it's passable, it's fine until it's a really big deal and you're dealing with these systems, and it's terrifying.
This sounds like really was like a turn your pain into art situation the more I talk about it.
I guess so.
Anyway, that's and then you asked them how we work, and she's very clever and sort of detail oriented, so like every detail you see on the walls, all the little things, and I think you bring a lot of intellect to the table.
I feel like he's very good at keeping things very grounded in the character arc. And I mean, I think that's one of the reasons we realized this was kind of our pilot project of collaborating together. And since then, we've been working a lot together. And, one of the things that's really great, I think that one of the things you realize as you're working in this business is it's rare to find collaborators that, small child screaming somewhere in a different apartment. Sorry if you can hear them. But they,
see, you get Oscar nominated. You're still
living in an
apartment
complex. With
and
sorry,
babies crying.
Can't do anything about babies. But anyway, so I think that one of the things you learn is, it's funny how long it took us to figure out that like we should work together, even though we literally lived together and we were already kind of working together. And so we were like,
in our sort of like own careers, I tend to write stuff that is like, a little dark. Like I had a script on Blacklist, which is kind of almost like Whiplash or like Blue Valentine, that kind of thing. And she tends to write more sort of like satires, like fun, clever stuff. So I guess when we combined our forces, we get nominated for an Oscar. So
we're like, this is working. We should just keep on going.
Working.
And it was really fun. I think it's like, making a movie is kind of like, it's a pain. It can be a very painful, it's a marathon. Like you have to push through, and to do that with people that you love and trust is so important. And I mean, I guess that's to anyone, I mean, you hear, I think all the time if you're like in film programs, like the people around you are the people that are going to like help you later on. And it's funny because like you might not see that right away, but all the people in this movie, like all the people who helped us in this movie, it's like we've known each other for a long time now. Like my dad, who I've known since I was born, like was there, like he was there for me. Don't undervalue your own family and like what they can do.
Although not everyone's dad could turn in like such a great performance in an Oscar
nominated. It was such a great,
but maybe your dad can. Maybe all of your fathers or mothers would be amazing. You still they haven't been discovered yet. And the editor is our friend Brian Pison, and like I don't think he'd ever edited something narrative for a different person before. Like he'd only edited his own shorts, and he's a very talented writer and director, and he works in post-production in reality television. But like he's such a funny person, and sometimes you can just, we just really trusted him. We were like, this is, I think for shorts, especially things that are going to be walking a tonal line, like doing something comedic or something, your editor is so important in making sure that your editor understands the tone. The editor is the final writer of your movie, and they're so important. And so we went with someone that we just trusted that he completely understood the movie, and he did such a great job. So
I'm going to open it up in a minute to questions from our audience. So everybody who has a question, please do put it in the Q&A box, not the chat box. And I'll get started with that in just a minute. This is such a fascinating film, y'all. And I can really see why festivals responded to it, because it is funny. It is so universal. It is also lighthearted, and yet about such a serious topic, especially after the social upheaval that started after George Floyd's death. And so I can totally see why festivals have responded to it. Can you talk a little bit about your festival run and how you ended up not shortlisted, first qualified for an Oscar? first qualified
Mhm.
for an Oscar? Let's start with that.
Well, so not to undercut all the nice accolades you said, but you know, we didn't get into Sundance, we didn't get into South by Southwest, and like, you know, her last short won Sundance, and I think even
And we won South by Southwest too. That I wrote the short I wrote, Emergency, had like one. We had gone to bigger festivals, but like this film, it's interesting because I think that I don't know exactly if it's because it's a genre film, like, you know, it's a sci-fi film, and so I think kind of it gets put in the sci-fi box. And we played at a lot of really great genre festivals. We played at Fantastic Fest and Fantasia, and like we played at really great festivals. But it is interesting that like we only were really we won the Florida Film Festival Grand Jury Prize, and that is the only Oscar qualifying festival that we won. We were accepted in a few other ones, but like they basically, it's crazy to think like the stars had to align for us to, if they had not given us the Grand Jury Prize, if you know, they had picked a different one, we would not have qualified at all. We would not have been shortlisted. We would not have been nominated. And I think that we were shocked really, because there is it is rare for genre films to make it into the shortlist at all. So I think we assumed when we were shortlisted, it was a huge surprise, and we were like, whoa. Yeah,
we hadn't like campaigned for it or anything. We just woke up one day. I honestly didn't even weren't like tracking it. Like, you know, I got phone calls. That's why we found out.
Like our producers, Mark and Diego, were like, well, we qualified, we definitely need to submit. And we were kind of the attitude, well, like, you know, usually the Oscar winning shorts tend to be dramas. Like ours has a dramatic sort of spine, but like you know, we were kind of thinking like ours is a kind of satirical, and it's a sci-fi film. Like our chances are slim. And we did no PR leading up to, we just applied, and you know, we were very surprised to make it onto the short list. And then I think getting onto the short list, getting nominated was, we did a little bit, we hired like a PR firm, but like with also just no expectation of like, we were like, oh, we were lucky to make it this far. And there is a video of us on Twitter. They asked us to record our reaction and put it on social media, just, you know, just in case, you know. So we were like, okay, like we're probably going to record our reaction, and it's going to be us recording our own disappointment. And we put it up, and we were the last one to be announced because it's alphabetical order. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was just like extreme. You
can see our reaction. You can also see why it has not been shared by the Academy, because unfortunately I started yelling expletives. Although in my defense, that is the time to drop an F-bomb.
It is. Agreed.
But so, I think sort of like, you know, we the big festival that we got to see our movie on a big screen was Palm Springs, because it was like between variants before Delta, I believe, for the I can think is Eternal now. But essentially we got to see it, and there was something very gratifying about sort of, you know, seeing like the reaction of an entire theater where they're laughing. There's that moment where he loses his money, where everyone would just like gasp. I feel like when you get people to gasp, like that's when you're winning.
Yeah, I mean, and we also we got to screen at Fantastic Fest, and that was during the pandemic, and they had a live chat that was going on during this, like the screening, which other festivals, I mean, I think that, you know, your mileage may vary. Some people might say that's a very distracting thing to have, like running along the side of your, but I thought it was amazing as a filmmaker, because it's rare that you ever get to hear people's internal monologue as they're watching your movie. Because I mean, you hear laughter and you hear gasps, but you rarely hear people say like, oh no, what's going on? You know, we got to see that internal monologue. And yeah, I mean, we're eternally grateful to the festivals that you know, featured us. And Florida Film Festival, like our lives would be completely different if Florida Film Festival hadn't, you know, I'm like,
they have
thank you, Florida. They have great
taste. They sure do. Yeah. No, I think it's really cool for you to say, like, we didn't get into the big festivals because, as the director of the film festival department, a lot of times I'm working with filmmakers who Sundance is their dream, South by Southwest or Cannes. And the competition is so intense for those that I think it's really important to have a very diverse portfolio of festival submissions. And yeah, like y'all obviously you created a very successful run for yourselves, and that's really impressive. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I think
we still feel like we're just lucky.
We're just,
So,
I really do think that we made a movie that
great
we wanted to make.
With your luck.
Yeah, I do think that, we made a movie that made us happy, that we had a vision of what we wanted it to be, and we did it the way we wanted to do it, and we were very proud of it. And I think that's kind of all you can do. And then it's really out of your hands in a lot of ways. And I think that people don't like to acknowledge how much luck plays a role in where you end up, but it does play a role.
I think that luck and talent and timing.
Too.
Timing too. Yeah. So we have some questions from the audience. One is budget really important for Oscar stuff? And by the way, what is the budget of Please Hold? Which I know often that's a question people are not excited to answer.
Budget. I would say that when you're making a movie on a small budget, expect to work on it for a long time. I think that, like, were you gonna say something?
I was gonna say, I think we also, like, when we say a budget number, that's very deceptive because we got a lot of help through our connections and stuff. For example, we didn't pay anything for the VFX.
We got our VFX artist for free because he's a friend of a friend and now a friend. Like, he's now like, I feel like he's like a family member to us now. Years that we worked on this.
Our first born after.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where the budget levels can be very deceptive if you're working on a small budget, and it really comes down to, can you pitch the project to people and convince them to work on it for free or for a low amount of money, just like out of passion, because we never really expected a return on, like, we were hoping to make maybe a feature eventually, but that wasn't really what we went in with. But just finding a group of people who believe in the idea, and grant money can also help. I got some for when I worked on Emergency, that we did through the Film Independent Project Involved program. And we had so little money when working on that. We raised a bit of money, and we got a little bit of grant money from Project Involve. But the thing that, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so like this one, what would you say was the final budget? I feel like, people want like cold hard numbers, like, someone is like number crunching there. Like, am I gonna be able to?
That seems like I can guess, but I'd rather not say numbers that might not be correct. But I think
I'll say like 50K.
I don't think it was 50K. I think it was less than 50K.
Okay.
It was way less than 50K, unless you add in like way after, like if you add in Oscars PR.
Okay.
But,
all right.
Anyway, so it's less than, it was less than, I think, like, we spent less on this than people spend on a lot of their thesis films in film school.
Right.
And yeah, like, I would say, like, somewhere in the range of a used car is what you should expect to pay for a short film. But anyway, so like when you're dealing with when, like, for Emergency, applying for grants, getting grants, and then just trying to raise the money yourself, just like know that you can only tap that, like, you can only really tap your network like once, really, for shorts, which is, it can be really hard, especially, so I'm Mexican American, and like I would say that my family's not wealthy at all, and my extended family's not wealthy. There's a lot. I have a big extended family, but they're not wealthy. And so, asking them to give money for you to make a short film is a big ask. And so just being conscious of that and being like, I don't want to ask them for, too much to just like, so, it's tough to be a short filmmaker. But fortunately there are organizations like Film Independent that help. And we did get they have a fiscal scholarship or a fiscal sponsorship program that allows you, basically you can get donations to your film as tax deductible because it's like supporting the arts. So I very much encourage people who are trying to raise money to look into fiscal sponsorship programs through nonprofits that support the arts, just because that can really help you raise money in the long run.
And you did that through Film Independent?
Yeah, we did that through Film Independent, and Seed and Spark is how we crowdfunded.
Great. Yeah, they're in the credits of both Film Independent.
Both of them, yes. So we did both, and Seed and Spark was also very valuable. It's like Kickstarter sort of for filmmakers and specifically, and they're considered like better than going. They're good. Filmmakers tend to hang out there, and it's a little easier to get your project funded because they will pay out the money even if you don't meet your entire goal. Like if you meet at least if you meet a certain level of your goals, they will still pay you. Unlike some other services that will like, you have to make all of it, or like,
you
so
have to.
I recommend Seed and Spark. I recommend
or give it away, give it back.
Program. Yeah. So, and then grants don't always work out. I think we applied for a lot of grants that we got rejected from.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we totally got rejected. I don't want to name them because we don't want to shame any.
No, we should write letters to them and saying,
be like,
hey,
you didn't
you
rejected us. Like, you will get a lot of rejection. But you gotta try, and it's the worst thing that they can do is say no.
Yeah, that is so true. We have several questions here from the audience that are about the challenges of directing the project. Like what was or were the biggest challenges, and how many shoot days did you have?
Oh man, and that's another hard question again, just because how many shoot days do you count for? Like,
yes.
so this bookshelf right here is where we shot the like law firm stuff with my dad.
Your dad?
My dad plays the lawyer in the movie.
Yeah.
And so like when you're doing something indie again, like we had 3 days of proper shoot where we had our set build that we did. We had the set build, and we had Eric for 3 days of shooting. But like if you count all the things we did beforehand, oh man, like I can't even tell you how many hours I spent just making like the graphics for the commercials and all of that sort of thing, because that was all pre-production, not post-production. That was like mid-production. So
or like building the set, like we had to like carve everything.
Yeah, we built,
probably inhaled dangerous gases. Took 2 years of our lives.
Like we were all like we had a carpenter, and we had a production designer and everything, but like we were like Levin and I and the other producers were like, we were on our hands and knees in my dad's garage, like building the set. Anyway, so the shoot itself, the proper shoot, the official shoot was 3 days, but I would say like it was a lot of pre-production work, and then post-production too, just because of the effects and the like we had the mural commissioned by she's actually a Mexican muralist named Ale Puere, and it's funny because we were like, can you do a mural for us but to be in a movie? And she was like, huh? And so she made like a digital drawing of a mural. She was like, cool. So she did it, and it's like, it's the opening shot of the film, and so all these things, like I consider those all so essential to the process, and it just takes a lot of time.
Is that mural actually painted on a wall? Or
no,
it was digitally done?
That's a visual effect. Okay. Yeah. So we had always known we wanted to have a piece of street art there, because I think that street art is such an important thing, especially in Los Angeles and in Mexican American culture. Just murals they tell a story
Definitely.
of what's happening in the world. And so it was really important to me that it started with a piece of street art. And so we worked for a while to, you know, to commission the piece of digital art that was going to be made into a mural. And I think it helped that we were working with someone who had actually painted murals. She actually paints real murals. And so she understands like what, even though it was digitally imposed, like what it would feel like in that space and what, you know, dealing with the actual architecture. So, yeah.
I need a t-shirt of either the mural or Scaly, maybe Scaly.
We'll make some merch. Sure.
I think you need merch.
Still working on that. Yeah, it's the guy. So the guy who plays Scaly, whose name's Greg, he's a friend of ours. He keeps being like, when are we gonna have Scaly merch, and when are we gonna make the Scaly spinoff, and when are we gonna Scaly TV show? So
he's not wrong.
Yeah.
He's not wrong. So you were just talking about the 3 days of the shoot, and I've got a couple of questions here about the casting process, and particularly for Mateo. But I actually know Doreen Calderon. She's actually done some work for me
cool, yeah.
in NYFA classes. So she played the mother. So yeah, could you talk a little bit about the casting?
Yeah, the casting process was, we had a casting director. I mean, do you want to, I feel like I've been talking a lot. Do you want to talk about it?
No. I mean, I like the sound of your voice. That's why I married you. But okay, I'll take it.
My voice is starting to give out. I've been talking too much. Take a break.
We had our casting directors, you know, we auditioned a lot of people. I mean, when your entire movie is essentially a one-man performance, you know, it either makes or breaks it. In my humble experience, like sort of casting is one of the most important things in a movie. Like, you know, you're like, VFX looks shitty once in a while, blah, blah, blah. Nobody gives a shit. But like, if you're,
I think people give a shit. But
yeah, but I'm just saying, you know, you go to watch like a romantic comedy, and if there's like, you know, one thing where they didn't do something right in post-production, whatever. But if those two people don't feel like they're in love, then your movie doesn't work.
Right.
So I feel like there's a very similar thing here. And, you know, we looked at a lot of really talented people. And I think we ended up with Eric because he was I would say not the only one, but he was the best at balancing the comedy and the drama in a way. Because, you know, he's playing a very like an everyman type. So he's going to react to things. And it was really important to us that, you know, this is not a kind of a comedy where like he's cracking jokes or whatever. Like, you know, the comedy comes from the absurdity of the environment and the situation that he's in. So we sort of like, you know, threw him some stuff, see how he reacts. And it worked out. He's also in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which we love, so it didn't hurt.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he knocked it out of the park.
I mean, I think that the thing that he did so well was you have to balance this, you know, the fact that this is a man going through an emotional journey, and you're watching him go through this, you know, kind of the stages of surprise, then almost grief, then like, you know, it's kind of like he's going through like denial, anger, bargaining, like all of the stages of and watching him do that, but also feel just kind of adorable at the same time. Like you feel for him. And I thought he just did such a good job.
In terms of
and he's such a nice person too to work with. He's just he was so sweet and so nice. And I love when you're working with people and they're just like
that
cool.
Set was so warm.
Like, the set was
beat of like sweat is like
it was very hot set.
Oh, I thought you were talking about sort of like emotionally warm, like
everyone was also warm.
Was like,
it was emotionally
really
warm,
hot.
But it was also like I feel like we were working in a set that on a hot day, I feel like everything it was a hot day, downtown Los Angeles, and the sun got angry that day, and I just remember like it was very like hot, and you have all the lights on, and we were running the air conditioning as fast, but it wasn't keeping up, and he was such a good sport about it, and he just like, you know, our whole set was really great. Everyone was just so nice.
In terms of sort of like auditions and stuff, something that we noticed was the first few people came in, they were playing it as a very serious drama. and we were
Okay.
sort of a little confused. So I think overall, I would say it's important to, you know, make sure that the person auditioning understands the tone of the movie.
Yeah, and you can give them,
Mhm.
obviously, like, you know, if you've done the audition process before, as the director, while you're sitting there, you also want to see how they take direction. So, you know, if they don't understand it, it's okay to say, like, if their first read was kind of like an incorrect
Right.
interpretation of the tone, you can say, like, actually, like, you know, think about it this way, like, it, you know, just tell them what the tone is, or tell them to play it a different, give them, throw
Mhm.
something at them and toss them back outside, and just say that, like, you know, not toss them back outside, you know what I mean? Just tell them, like, go outside, just look at it again, and then come back in a minute and see if they get it then. Because, you know, sometimes their first read can be a little off, and if they don't get it the
Mhm.
second or third time, they might just not understand what you're going for. And sometimes people just aren't right for your thing. So,
Yeah.
but Eric really got it, and we were really fortunate. And I mean, we were fortunate that we, with the rest of the casting, yeah, I mean, it was just looking for the people who seemed like that they like fully understood what the film was. And with my dad, casting of my father was, my dad kept being like, when are you going to put me in one of your movies? When are you going to put me in like a TV show or something? And I was like, well, now's your chance.
Here you go. Well, a follow-up to that, there's a question, are there any Easter eggs or small details with hidden meanings that the audience
Oh,
might have missed?
there are so many jokes that I'm not even sure if you can see them unless it's like on a really big screen or something. But every time that the screen is on the lawyer's screen, when, you know, when he's like looking through the lawyers, every single image in that is a joke. Like all of the different lawyers' names are all jokes. There's also, like, there's a commercial for Halo and Saperstein, and they're like a law firm duo that, like, one of them's an AI and one of them's a person, and like I feel like that's kind of the gist of all of the, like, you know, we did a lot of world building through just the trying to have all the background things just give that. And I mean, one of the things that when we were researching like what jail cells
Mhm.
are like, you know, to try to do production design and stuff, I realized that, you know, jail graffiti can tell a lot of stories as well. And so there's, you know,
Mhm.
I really, one of the things that was fun about making the set was like writing, like, don't eat the chicken next to the slot where the food comes out, and like, you know, things like that. Just like, there's like, if you look around the background on the walls, it just kind of tells a story of like all these other people's experiences in this place. And, like,
Right.
that was really fun to do. And I think that production design can really tell a story. And also, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of little tiny things like that if you watch it again,
So I think
you may notice, maybe not.
I think what we should do, audience, is go back and watch it again and just keep hitting pause and study every like 3 seconds or so, or 30 seconds.
Oh God.
See what we find.
You will eventually see my initials like etched into one of the walls, because I think that's, I don't know, I just did that, I guess.
It's okay. You can get one indulgence.
Yeah, I was like,
that's you.
Set deck, right? There's like there is a penis carved into the wall somewhere. I don't know. Yeah, there is a big. Yeah, I think you did that one.
Yeah. I'm memories are coming back.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, let me see what else we have over here. We have so many questions, everybody, and I'm so sorry. We probably won't get to all of them, but they're all great questions. You know, we've got several people who are new film students or new acting students. And so there's a general question about like, what are some tips that you have, or what would be your big advice for actors or directors?
Here's my advice for making short films. So I wrote a short film that, like, I feel like I'm not an expert in very many things, but I'm starting to feel like I might have figured out some things about short films, like, you know, made 2 short films and they've done fairly well. So, you know, take it for what it's worth. But my philosophy on shorts is that putting constraints on yourself only helps you.
I
Production
agree.
constraints.
I totally
So
agree.
like,
Why?
Yeah, you'll notice in Please Hold, and if you go back and watch Emergency, which is the other short that I wrote, that we made into a feature, which is now, it's coming out on Amazon in May. So yay. The thing that I think I figured out is that try as hard as you can to have it all take place in one location. The meat of your short film, if it take like one location, and try to concentrate on like one person's journey, and you will. I mean, it's funny because like I was just meeting with someone about they were trying to adapt a they asked me for just advice like on how to come up with a proof of concept for a feature film. And a lot of times people try to overcomplicate that, like, or they don't try to. It's very easy, I think, to overcomplicate a short film because I think that especially when you get into the production phase, it's very easy for like the director and the cinematographer to get distracted by like, okay, what are all these transitions going to be? What is it going to be visually? What is it going to be like? What are all the like the cinematic language we're going to use? Like all the things. And I think those things are very obviously important. Those are things you definitely want to pay attention to. But if you are trying to explain, like if you're having a bunch of lead up into the movie before it gets interesting, those are precious minutes that the person who's programming your film is checking out, which is, like I worked for a little bit I was an intern for, and then I worked for a year at the NBC Universal Short Film Festival.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's still around, but like that festival, I watched when I was working for them, I watched hundreds and hundreds of short films. And I learned that, I think that one of the valuable things I learned is that, and I was one of the people who was helping, like, I would help take in everybody's grades on the short films. Like I was watching them, but I was also the person who I had to take in all the reviews, essentially.
Right.
I was reading all the reviews of the short films that were coming in.
Yeah.
And one of the most common things that you would get from people who are screening these films is like this, like, it doesn't get to the point, like it never gets to the point, like, or just like, it's the thing you don't want to save the exciting part for like the last 30 seconds. Like you definitely want to engage us with a character and then ask a question, like ask one question that you want to answer by the end. And for Please Hold, I think the question is, we put him in the situation pretty quickly. And then the question is he going to be able to get a hold of a human being to resolve this problem
and get out of here? Yeah.
He's going to be able to get out of here. And it's a very simple question. And the answer at the end is like, it becomes like, it's a yes, but is the answer. Like, yes, but there is a cost.
He's lost
and that's
so
where, and I think that like, that's what you want to do. Try your hardest not to overcomplicate, because you are going to overcomplicate it anyway. Like even our film, we were like, it's going to be easy. It's one location. It was already so much more complicated than we thought it was going to be. Like, it's always going to be way more complicated. It's going to be like 5 times more complicated than you think. So just do yourself a favor and just like put yourself in a box. And there's so much awesome stuff you can do in a box.
I think that we humans tell ourselves that difficult tasks will not be difficult, so that we'll actually do them. And along the way, we're like, what have I done? So that's a really helpful answer, Katie. It's definitely helpful. I see a lot of our filmmakers' films, and I feel very fortunate that I get to see them at different stages, where they're like early films, first year films, intermediate films, thesis films. And it's really interesting, exactly what you said. Like, you want to go deep into a story as opposed to go broad, is the way that I like to phrase it. And
and I think that it can be very tempting to try to, I also think that like having having one strong point of view, even if you have multiple characters, having one strong point of view will help you so much as well. Just one point of view character who's really bringing you through the story, even if it's an ensemble. Like Emergency, the other short that I did, was like it was more of an ensemble film. It's like about three guys, and it's basically 3 guys in a room having a discussion. And you know, this film is now a feature film, and like it's grown outside of just that one thing. But the thing you want to show when you're making a short film, especially if you're early in your career and you you don't have many resources, is do what you can with what you have. Like if you want to showcase your acting, like put yourself in a room. And I will also say one really good way to stand out at festivals is, I mean, I guess your mileage may vary, but I'm of the opinion that if you're going to tell a story about something that is an issue, or like a heavier subject, or if you are willing to approach it with a bit of a sense of humor, it goes a long way. It will help you stand out, because a lot of short films are very, very dramatic. And I'm of just the personal opinion that as humans, we approach tragedy, and we approach the unknown and the unknowable, and all these things. We approach these things with humor, and even like a tragic situation can. Right. So I mean, if that's not your sensibility, then don't do that. But if you feel like that's the kind of way you approach things, then don't be afraid to bring some comedy into your movie. Because I personally feel like comedy is scarier than drama in a lot of ways, because you are taking risks, and it's a calculation of like, you might get it wrong. So anyway, I just encourage anyone out there, even if you don't see yourself as a comedy writer or a comedy director. It took me forever to see myself as somebody who does comedy in any way, shape, or form. It like, I was told so often, like, this is like, you're more of a drama writer, because I don't write jokes. So so anyway,
you write situations, you write characters. I get it.
So anyway, so anyone who, even if you don't see yourself as a comedian, or like the comedian type, whatever, don't be afraid to put some of yourself in your humor.
Best comedians I know are not that funny, and sort of like, they don't try to be funny.
I feel like a lot of the comedians that we know are like they're like the most, just they're the like dire people to be around. Like,
it's true. I mean, they have to be deep observers of life, and when you deeply observe life, you see some ugly things, some dark things. So
well said.
We're gonna wrap up in just a second, y'all. But Levin, I wanted to ask you, what's the biggest piece of advice you have? You want to add anything to what KD just said?
So I also used to be a screener for short film festivals, so I have seen a ton of short films, and I don't know how exactly to say this, but essentially, let's say you're making something about racism. Make sure that the theme of your movie is not racism is bad. Like, we all know that, we've seen that.
Not everyone knows that, but if they don't know that, they're not going to watch your movie and learn that. They're kind of hopeless at that point.
I think the idea is like, how do you approach it from a fresh angle? Like, for example, Get Out is very much like, what if, Guess Who's Coming for Dinner, but like as a horror movie, right? Sort of, I think sort of in ours, we took sort of an issue like private prisons, but what if it was in future, and sort of this person got swallowed in an automated place. Right. So I think sort of giving a spin on it, saying something that you feel like haven't been said before. I think a lot of shorts, even if they're like great in style, they also need to come with a substance that really brings it home.
Yeah, it's one of those frustrating things of like, often the first thing you think of is something that a lot of other people have thought about, so think about it again. Right.
I think you see a lot of movies where something really bad happens to a character,
But the question
And-
is, what does that mean? I agree. Like, having watched so many shorts, like something really bad happened. Like, the question is, why are you bringing me on this journey? Because I think that's the question that we always ask ourselves, is like, what are we doing to make ourselves worthy of your time? Like, we want to make sure that the time that we're asking you to give to us with your eyeballs and your brains
Right.
is worthwhile. And so, like, asking yourself the so what question of, like, I'm not just trying to make someone feel sad that something happened for this person. I'm trying to tell a story. I'm trying to talk about a theme, and I'm trying to, like, trying to elevate that beyond just this thing happened. So,
Right.
I mean, it sounds obvious, but sometimes I think it's just a matter of challenging yourself to really, like, to take risks and say something. And if you have something to say it.
I think that is a great way to end our conversation about taking risk and saying something as artists. And I just want to thank you both, Katie and Levin. Thank you so much for being here and speaking to our New York Film Academy students and broader community. I'm so excited about your film. And so when do we find out about if you won an Oscar?
At the Oscars.
At the Oscars.
But 3 hours early, because they're gonna pre-tape us. If you were
Oh yeah, did you see
checking
that? Saw the news. It's March 27th, I think, is the Oscars.
It's Sunday, March 27th, right?
Yeah, so please
Okay.
cross
your
We should
fingers.
all know
Yes.
the answer to this question.
yeah,
we will-
we're gonna tweet about it before you actually see it on the TV.
just kidding.
Oh, we're not
Or
supposed
not.
to do that?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. We're not going to do that. It's all going to be on
Yeah,
the TV,
it's all gonna
real
be-
time, live.
Okay, Katie and Levin may or may not be tweeting on Sunday, March
Wonderful.
27th, when they go to the Oscars. Anyway,
That's
I'll be
right.
watching. I wish y'all the best of luck. And thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you
to
for
our
having
Thank you so
us.
much.
community, thank you.